A watch's escapement is much like our own heart. It maintains the heartbeat. It's responsible for how accurate it keeps time and its reliability. In the past, we've had issues with trying to make the accuracy work over a long period of time with minimal maintenance. Now, last year, Rolex came out with a new land dweller with the caliber 7135 with a Dynapulse escapement. While some cheered for its design, others walked away from it. But they missed one fundamental thing. There's something very similar that the Dynapulse escapement and the Omega Co-Axial has in common. There's also one key difference between the two that's going to allow Rolex to take back the crown for long-term, accurate timekeeping in the thinnest package yet. Welcome to Marco Polo Explorers Time. Today we're talking about the Rolex Dynapulse, and we're going to compare it to all of its competition. And we're going to make all that complex stuff go away. We're going to simplify all this to a fundamental viewpoint that all of us can understand. Now, we just need to make a trip into my hallway so I can explain the difference with these, because I need to show you my door. All right, welcome to my hallway. This is my door. Now, why are we looking at a door today? We need to use a little imagination. Now, in order for an escapement to work, it needs to move a gear. A gear is just a series of teeth around it. And if you imagine the gear being very thick to the point where each tooth is the size of a door, then all you have to do to move the gear is open a door. So, this traditional Swiss escapement has been around for 250 years. And if it wanted to open this door, it would simply put its hand here and slide across to open it. Now, in case you couldn't hear that, that's friction. So, for 250 years, how do they solve it? They put oil on it. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem is that oil dries up and gets gunky, and then it's like going a bunch of speed bumps. So instead of going across this smooth surface, it's more like going across this. And eventually, when it gets up, it actually takes much longer to open the door, which is why your watch loses time over longer periods, right? So, hey, my watch is running 3 seconds slow per day. Oh, all of a sudden my watch is, it's down to like 2 minutes slow per day. Okay, this is why, because it's running into this problem. So, how did they solve it? Well, the easy solution is you just wipe off all the oil and you clean up everything and you reapply oil and you're good to go for a while. Now, over the 250 years, the solution for this was to change the type of oil they're using. We went from plant oil to animal oil, and then we went to the modern day of synthetic oils. Now, synthetic oil is great. If you look up Mobius, it doesn't really start breaking down until between like the 5th and the 10th year. This is why I think a lot of manufacturers will give you a 5-year warranty, because they think their accuracy will be good for the first 5 years before oil starts breaking down. Now we're going to talk about, that was the way they solved it. We didn't talk about George Daniels and when he solved over 30 years ago, because when he came out with the Co-Axial, he said, this friction thing, not so good. I want to open the door. Why don't I just push it open? And that's how the Omega Co-Axial works. So, how does the Rolex Dynapulse work? Well, it works the same way. It pushes the door open. All right, let's go back inside and talk about it. Welcome back. Now that we know what's similar, we need to talk about what's different. Okay, the problem with this analogy is we've been imagining a gear that's really tall so that the teeth look like doors and we're just pushing a series of doors. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is it requires 2 gears to make the watch work, because you need one moving clockwise and one counterclockwise to get the tick and the tock. So, came up with this image. This image will show you the orientation of how the Co-Axial versus the Dynapulse works. As you can see, the Omega is vertically stacked and the Dynapulse is much more like a French door. Why? Okay, history lesson. We're going to go back in time. George Daniels invented the coaxial movement. And historically, what he had done is he had actually built it and he had retrofitted into existing watches to show them to the industry. Most famously, he retrofitted one into a Rolex, which sold at auction for over $500,000. So, why is the Rolex design improved over this? Well, Even when the Omega first launched with the coaxial, it was still using an existing caliber, and they just retrofitted the coaxial in it. The problem is because it was vertically stacked, it made the movement 1.9 millimeters thick. Now, I know everyone out there says, oh, my guys are so thick. They thinned those out over time. They're as thin as most of the rest of the industry. So they did, build their new calibers around the coaxial and thinned it out. But with the orientation of the Dynapulse being on a horizontal plane, in case you have not seen the new Rolex Land Dweller, it is thin and elegant. So this leads to the next part. So what else is different? Well, the only main other difference between really the two is that the Rolex escapement is using a lot more silicon parts. Now, why would they be using more silicon parts? Well, they don't worry about oil as much. So one less problem, right? And, I know people are like, oh, silicon, it can melt and blah, blah. I have spatulas in my kitchen that say they're good for up to 450 degrees. I haven't had a single one melt or do anything on me. I've been using them for years. So reliability, I think, will be just fine. So this is where I pull out my crystal ball and make predictions. I predict over the next 5 years, the caliber 71XX is going to be pushed into all models of Rolex. What am I basing that on? Well, the last release they did. You see, when they went from the 31XX to the 32XX, that started in 2015 with the date, and then they pushed it into, I think it was in 2016, they started putting it in the date just, and then the Sea Dweller, and then in like 2018, it was the GMT, and the models went on and on. I can't remember if it ended with the Submariner or if it ended with the Explorer, but it took like 5+ years, right? So my guess is that we're going to start seeing watches come out that they may thin them out. They may actually make their watches even thinner than they are now, which would be really neat over the next 5 years. Starting with, of course, their high-end ones. They started with the Land Dweller. The next one they'll probably do is either going to be the date, or my guess this time they might actually do the GMT because they had just discontinued the Pepsi and they have patents for the bezel for the Coke. So why not release the GMT? Be very interesting to see what comes out from Watches of Wonder this far for my prediction to be true. If you've enjoyed this, give me a like. If you want to see more content, hit subscribe. And if my Rolex AD is listening, where's my Land Dweller? Be good.